All right. There's a movie from the 1990s called You've Got Mail, and it's like a rom com, and like some I one rom com that I actually enjoyed, that was actually moving to me and actually deeply romantic to me, is a movie. There's Something About Mary. That's a very romantic movie and beautiful movie and deep, but it also trifles with some things that are that are not anything funny or even anything to play with or maybe even worth entering into a movie, and that is stalking. Because the movie There's Something About Mary, it's humorous, but it highlights stalking. And if you were to look up stalking like on Wikipedia, it actually cites that there's a few movies in popular culture that emphasize stalking, and that those are significant, salient, and actually problematic potentially. That they would even be allowed, that they would be popular, is problematic, and is part of what is part of the history of the media around something. The art of something is actually part of the reality of something. So you could say that the art and the media of violence, like in music, in film and whatnot, is actually part of the reality of violence, because art imitating life and life imitating art. But also stalking, like in the movie There's Something About Mary, is actually somehow it's not outside of the reality of stalking. And stalking is one of the most atrocious forms of victimization, because the imminent threat of potential harm or damage is actually as damaging as damage sometimes. And then if that's attended by real damage, that can make it ramped up. But if you imagine, like sometimes they would have like navies that would float around the world, like in times of war, and when they would be battle ready, or you just have a military company or installation that is battle ready, they're on alert for battle. That is taxing and daunting and brutal, as though actually under battle. And sometimes there actually is real imminent battle on the horizon that is soon to ensue, and shall ensue. But the state of battle readiness, it actually somewhat prepares the military for the engagement in the worst of ways, and it puts them on a worse footing in the engagement. So they're actually already traumatized before they get into the battle by the threat and the foreboding of battle. And then the battle is equally traumatic, and confirms that, and reconfirms that. So it's just completely traumatic. But this is similar with stalking, like that, where sustaining stalking is one of the heaviest and the worst things that can happen, because it's similar to besiegement. There's some things that are just complete. War is wrong, but there's some things that are as wrong as wrong, and more wrong than wrong in war. And these are like your war crimes. So you have criminals, you have war, you have criminals, and you have war criminals. And war criminals are as awful. I don't know that anything's more awful than war, but if there were one, it would be war crime. And one of them is besiegement. That's like to lay on a person, or to stalk a person, to haunt a person. And that's actually it's a high as of a form of victimization, as to actually put hands on a person, or to touch a person, to haunt a person, is like that. And it's similar to besiegement. That's like surrounding an enemy position and making them stuck there and defend themselves. That's actually a form of war crime, because you are so more. It's not within it's not within the realm of self defense, like fighting. It's actually it's to completely take advantage of another person in a way that should not be experienced by a human being or anything. Is a war crime in besiegement. But stalking is a form of besiegement. But so I just wanted to say, there's nothing light about that. But I get on tangents. But rom coms, there are some themes about love, like in Romeo, and There's Something About Mary. And now sometimes it's difficult to get past people that we really felt something for, in the worst of ways, but maybe in a redeeming way sometimes, because there's a silver lining through things. But also there's a rom com that I didn't fancy as much, but it was popular. My mom liked it. It's called there's You've Got Mail. And in one point, she's like, this is like when email was first a new thing, like in the 90s, and it's about like falling in love at that time over email. And it's like some of our first online dating would have been You've Got Mail. And but she's like dating a writer that's kind of obnoxious and like kind of like weak as a lover, and she's like actually falling in love with someone else as she's stuck with a writer. But he's like, dang, I just said that, that's cool what I said. So he's like quoting himself and impressed with himself. And but he's more of a writer for that, and that's not bad actually, because if you're about that life, that's your life, and that's cool. And actually, I think in there's something about Mary. He was actually a writer also. So sometimes you're artists, but especially writer maybe. So a lot of artists are troubled. There's some dark things about art, like even humor. So sometimes like you say this really cool joke, right, and you actually got people laughing, right, in a cool way. But then not too long later, you end up sticking your foot in your mouth and really pissing someone off that you didn't mean to. That you got away with that first joke is part of the inertia in the cycle that would later have you piss someone off. So actually, you could say that you can't land a cool joke without further some way down the line pissing someone off, or maybe having pissed someone off to come to the point of landing a real joke. That's some of the dark aspect of humor, but it's similar with music. And I've talked about some of the darkness about like taking up an instrument like guitar, but it's still worthwhile, I think. But there's some darkness about it if we're honest. But then writers are like that also. So a lot of artists are troubled, but writers are also troubled. And in the film, there's something about Mary. His friend, who was actually egregious, was saying that, oh yeah, that's normal that that's normal that you're messed up because you're an artist and you're a writer and writers are artists. But I want to say that being a writer, it might be one of the most unbalanced and therefore valuable and enlightening, but also difficult ways of existing is to be a writer. But doing videos like this, freeform content, is also a form of writing. It's similar like writing, but there's a lot of daunting things about attending the lifestyle and the existence of being a writer, and you can see that in the movie. There's something about Mary and You've Got Mail, as some of those characters are writers, and that's actually accurate of life imitating art and art imitating life. But I just wanted to I had a conversation with someone today that I wanted to quote myself in that conversation. That's actually self plagiarizing. It's actually a form of plagiarizing. But I wanted to quote a discussion that I had, some words that I put for a family member that I think might have value, and then I'm going to sign off from content for a while.